Hello, hi all. So I'm back with another Java interview question. And if you before that, like if you guys haven't watched my previous videos, like Java feature series I've covered, Spring Boot series and microservices I've started. And apart from this, like this is the most regular series where I've put my most asked interview questions here only. And here I've created or covered one most asked interview experience also of Infosys one. Hope you guys have watched, and if you haven't watched, please go and watch it. And one design pattern series also I've started of Java, where I've just covered as of now Singleton design pattern. So before watching this video, if you haven't watched my this Singleton design pattern, please go and watch it and let me know if you have any doubt, any suggestions. And before that, like if you haven't like and share, subscribe my channel, please like, share, and subscribe my channel. And let's get started with the today's question. Basically, today's question says that this has been asked. This one question has been asked in many of the companies, whether it is a product based company or the service company. Like as I mentioned, suppose so some financial based bank companies, they have asked this question, and some service companies they have asked. So, and if you are having the range experience of 3 to 8 years of experience, so this is the most important question which has been asked in mainly in the product based company or the good service companies or the big four companies I'm covering. So what the question they ask, they generally ask, like if you are aware of about the bean scopes, there are multiple bean scopes. Like one bean scopes of our design pattern, like Singleton design pattern I've covered in my channel. Please go and watch, as I mentioned. So some other bean scopes are there, like Singleton is there, prototype is there, request is there, session is there, and global session is there. So in Singleton Bean, you need to inject the prototype bean. That is the interview question, and this is the most asked interview question from the Java developer interview. If you are a Java developer, so this question can be asked from you, and they can expect you a proper hands-on example. Also, sometimes they can expect you like how what you will be approaching it and where you are using this. So that is the main motive of this question. So let me explain you or just brush up that singleton beans are those beans which are created once only, and it is shared among across all the container. So it is the shared instance. Suppose a DB connection we are creating it, and it is sharing different modules are using that same DB connection. Okay, and singleton beans are shared, stateless, and business logic. It can be shared, as I mentioned, but prototype bean is there that every time you request a bean, you would get a new instance or new object is there. That bean is being created, and these beans are temporary, stateful, and task specific logic. And other bean scopes are request session and global session. For each HTTP request, a new bean is created in the request scope bean, and for each HTTP session, a new session bean is created. For each like global session is there, so in each HTTP session, a global session bean will be created, which will be shared across among whole application. So our main motive is there that say is in singleton bean we are getting one single bean only, but now our requirement is then that a single bean class is there, but you want that every time you request a bean, so you should get a new bean every time. And suppose there is a requirement, there is an application in which you are sending the mail to the customers, and for each every email request you should be getting a new bean instance. Then only the bean will be successful, and once the email is sent, so that bean will also be eligible for the garbage collection. And that particular whole code is like the is in being the singleton whole code service logic is using the singleton bean, but a single requirement is there that particular bean functionality or email functionality should be sent it using the prototype bean. Like for each email you are sending it, you should get a new bean every time. So that is the main functionality, you can say, in the real time example. So that's why we'll be creating this prototype, injecting this prototype bean into a singleton bean. But now you will say that in singleton bean, if you can use the new keyword and you can get a new bean, but those will be taking much more memory, and those will be not as stateful as compared to this prototype bean what we are injecting into singleton bean. And those will like you can say no will not use the AOP features, if you are aware, expect oriented programming, or the IOC container features here. So that's why that is not the correct approach. So to avoid that approach, we will be injecting this prototype bean into a singleton bean. And the problem arises, suppose if you uses the suppose for example uses only the singleton bean only, and you done the email logic that you are sending the email request, and for each email request you are getting the single bean only, or the same bean is being used multiple times. So suppose the problem arises, suppose John is there, For example, John is there, is sending mail to A. Then Bob is there, is sending to B, suppose, and both are using the singleton bean only. They haven't injected any prototype bean, they haven't used this new keyword concept there. So what is there, that single thread, a single object is there, and at the same time John is also trying to modify this mail, and at the same time Bob is also trying to modify the same bean. So that can be the problem of data inconsistency, and if you're using the threads there, so that will be become a more problem or more complex there. So to avoid this problem, at the same time, like both they are trying to modify the same mail or the same object, you can say, not the same mail, because mail can be different there. So that is the scenario we are covering. So that's why we will be injecting this prototype bean into a singleton bean, and as I mentioned, new keyword beans are not impactful, and this results or this new keyword beans will not satisfy the conditions of this spring dependency injection concepts. So that's why we don't use the new keyword beans directly. Otherwise, if you are using the new keyword beans, then what is the use of the auto wiring there? So that is the main concept, and that's why this interview question has been asked, because this covers the real time examples also. So today what we'll be doing, it we will be trying to create one email application, a real time example, as simple email basic application, and inside that we'll be creating one post api http method, and we will try to send the email. We will not actually send the email to any server or something like that. We will just capture the, for each email we will be like capturing the object request, object like what is the object name of that particular request, and how we will be identifying that for each and every email we are getting the new object of the prototype bean, what we have injecting into a singleton bean. And this problem, if they just ask you like what will be approach, so in approach you can mention there are two ways to resolve this problem for injecting the prototype into a singleton bean, either using at the rate lookup annotation, or either using the object provider which works with the parameters also you can pass it. But inside the at the rate lookup, it is not dynamic way of approaching the problem, but at the rate object or not annotation, this is not at the rate, this is object provider, and this basically you can pass the parameters also. So today we'll be using at the rate lookup only, where we do not need the requirement of passing the parameters. So let's get started. And before that, like if you haven't like, share and subscribe my channel, please like, share and subscribe my channel. We will go with the spring initializer, and we'll be creating our application, and inside here we will be just passing the name as email service, java 17 I'm using it, packaging is jar, and id you can use as your preference, like either you can use the eclipse or either you can use the IntelliJ. And project is maven, language is java, and in dependencies we are adding the spring web dependency for creating the MVC application. Nothing else is required, it will be a simple project, just controller and service layer is required for capturing it, and postman is required, and the id is required. That is the basic requirement for this. And after generating the project from the spring initializer, just unzip into the id, and once unzip you will be able to see this basic main application there is there. And in the application dot properties we will be changing the server dot port to 9092. You can change to any other port also. Then we'll be creating one by one each packages. So first thing, we'll be creating the email controller here. Then what else will be requiring? We will be requiring here service class or service package. Then we will be requiring here DTO. In controller, what you can do it, you can create one Java controller or REST controller basically, and that will name as email controller. Here you can create one DTO class, email request, and here you need to create the service class, email service, that will contain the business logic, or it will be a singleton class also. Then another thing is, here you will be creating one more class of prototype bean, and for that we will give the name as email processor. We will be processing the processor. Okay. And Okay, we will start with the controller layer, or we will just start with the DTO first. We will be creating the getter setters what are required. Just give the access modifier as private. String 2 is required from in mail concept, like to whom we are sending the mail, from where we are getting the mails from, then what is the message of that particular mail, then constructor we are keeping it if we want to have the initializer, and just the getters. Okay, okay. Then generate, what happened, getters only. Okay, setter is not required, we do not want to set anything, so just while to keep the code extra. Getter, then guys, if my videos are slow sometimes, you can modify your speed in the while watching the video as per the requirement. If you are aware of the concept, you just need to brush up, so you can adjust the speed according to string also. Getters, to string, and constructor is done. Now we will go with the controller. So for marking the spring will be aware that this is a REST controller using a REST controller. Then we'll be creating one post mapping. /send is there. Then public response entity will be using it for capturing the status code also. That is the main, and we'll be here is the just the thing is that I'll be passing the list of email request, and we'll be getting the list of object in one single call. This basically I'm doing as of now here, so that you should be aware that for each and every email we are creating the new object. In the real world application, you can pass the single email object or single email request also, but for each email request you will be getting the new object. You can just log that particular statement, but here like we are not having the real application, or real application we are not creating it. So we are capturing this list of string results also, and in list of string we'll be having for each email request a new object name will be there. So that is our main motive. And just send at that request body is there, at the request body is there, and here list email request return new response entity is there, service dot send, we will be creating these things. And here what will be passing, will be passing the request http status dot created. As of now we are giving, but created is not the right thing, as we are using the post mapping, so that's why we done the created, but okay will also be fine, I guess. That, so created is done, semicolon is there. Now we need to inject this service class, private email service at that AutoWired will be using it. Okay, so what we have done, we have created one address controller. We are auto wiring this service class bean, and we are calling this service through service class bean. We are calling the method of the service class, and we are passing the parameter as this request body of list of email request. What we are getting the JSON from the postman on hitting this particular URL of post mapping /send inside that local URL. Okay, now we are this controller part is done. Send method is not there, so that's why it is giving the error. So we'll be creating this send method in the email service. Now the thing is that you need to mark this at the service, so that Spring Boot will be aware, okay, this is the service class which contain the business logic. Okay, and list of string is there. mark this class as abstract as of now. I will tell you like why we are marking, just 1 minute. Then what we will be doing it, email service we are creating it, we need to call this particular prototype bean also. So that singleton bean email service done. Now mark this class as @ component, as already we have used @ service, so why to use to @ service. So this @ scope, so spring will know for this class also bean needs to be created. And scope, apart from singleton, other scopes like prototype, request session, global session, you need to mark @ scope, and you need to manually type like this @ scope. Okay, and here we will be creating one method, public void send email request. One by one we will be sending the request here in the prototype bean. And system.out.println, just for console, not for good. This SOP is not good for the production based application, as it takes much time. Just for your learning, I am here writing it. So processing email like this. Then we will be using here some multi-threading concept. We will be sleeping the thread for some duration, so that while processing this email it should take some time. 2000 we are passing, so it is 2 milliseconds. Then catch interrupted exception from sleeping state. Whenever you are covering this try catch and you are using the sleep, so the best exception is the interrupted exception, so that it interrupt this particular current thread from the sleep. So interrupt method is there, we will be calling that here. And system.out.println again, and here I am printing in the console email sent successfully. Okay, plus this. So this what it will do, it will print the current object, that particular name. So that is the thing. And so this send part is done, or the prototype part we have created. Now in this service email we need to create this email processor. We will be not auto wiring it, we will be directly injecting. Let me tell you like how we are doing it. And get processor is the method. Through method injection we are doing it. Get processor, and this processor we will be calling this send method, what we have created here in email processor. So that particular we are calling it. And require req we are passing it. Why we are passing it req? Because this is the list of email requests, and in email processor we want to send one by one request, as it is a group of request. So for that, email request req we have given the name, and request. So one by one it will. So that is the thing. Get processor method is not there. Create method get processor. Why this bracket is coming extra? And this will mark as the protected data type, so that it should be accessible in the R only, package only, and R class only. And apart from this, we will mark this abstract here also. Now I will be explaining like why we have marked the class as abstract and why we have marked this particular method as abstract. This thing is done. This bracket is extra here. @ what happened? @ lookup annotation we are using here for injecting it. Something is wrong here. This is there. This one bracket is of method 1, and control A. Just format this whole code here. We need to pass or return the list of string, so that it captures each and every object name. Resultant new array list, and for each resultant dot add email sent or processed successfully to end user. Like that we'll be sending, suppose writing it in the, this is the output what we'll be getting in the console. And here instead of this we'll be just adding the processor. It will consist all the new objects and just return result here, that particular list. And that's it, done from my side. So what we have done, if I explain you, we have created one post mapping. Our requirement was that we need to inject that prototype bean into the Singleton Bean class. Suppose Singleton already one single database object connections are there, single configuration files are there, and the requirement came that you need to, for each request you need to inject the prototype bean. Sorry. So for that we will be using @lookup as I mentioned here. For example, I have created one post mapping, and in the service class or inside the Singleton class, we have marked this class as abstract and this method as abstract, so that while running this application, Spring Boot will know that this particular class implementation or this particular method Spring needs to provide. And while providing the implementation, what it will do, it will provide the new bean every time for each email request. So here what we are passing are for just for the example, we are passing the list of email request, but for each email request we are iterating it. So for each email request we are getting the new object created here of prototype bean or injected here using this @lookup. So that is the behind the scenes here what is happening. And in the email processor, nothing we have done, we have just tried to create this bean as prototype, and component we have used, so that Spring will aware that for this class also bean needs to be created similar to email service. And we have just used the try and catch and sleep method, so that this processing emails takes some time. And that's it. And email service done, email processor is done, DTO we have created, email controller is done, application.properties we have changed the port. Now we will run our main application, and from the postman we will hit the URL on 9092. Is it created or started? Sorry, postman is there. I have already captured some requests and responses earlier. Now this is the request list of email request we will be sending again. It is taking time because we are using the thread.sleep for 2 milliseconds. For each email processing request, it is taking time. Now you can see E8, ED 104. So these three are the different three objects of the prototype bean. And how smartly we have done that, in Singleton Bean we have created these three objects. Otherwise, if we have not created @lookup, so it will be creating the single object E8 for all the three requests. So that is the main motive behind that. Instead of list of email requests, we are getting for each email request, suppose is being sent by the user in the real-time application, they are getting the each and every different new object for each request. So that is the real-time example. Using @lookup we are solving this problem. Let me go you once again, like what we have done. We have created one simple Spring Boot application using Spring Boot starter web application. Post mapping we have done. This all code and everything will be available in my Git repository. I'll be pasting the repo repository URL in my description or either in the chat box. Please, if you want, you can just have a look on that. Email controller is there, email request is there. From email controller we are sending the request to the service class, which we have marked as the Singleton. For Singleton we do not need to mark that this particular class of bean will be Singleton. By default it is having the single bean, so it is Singleton type class we have created. And for each iteration of request we are passing or we are injecting this email processor method. So for get processor we are calling for 3 times, suppose, for example. So for each request we are getting the new prototype bean, and with that we are capturing in the list of string and we are returning it. And this inside this processor dot send, this is the prototype bean method, and that we are sending it Nothing here we have done. As I mentioned, we are just sleeping it for making the thread sleep or processing the email to be sleepy for some, or for to be late or process some, take some duration of time here, 2 milliseconds. So that's why we have done here. And this is the prototype bean, this is the singleton bean, and how we have injected this prototype bean into a singleton bean using @ lookup. So that is the simple example. You can explain, or you can explain the approach also to the interview. So that's it from my side. And if you like my content, please like, share, and subscribe my channel. And if you haven't watched other videos also, please go and watch it, and let me know if you have any doubts, any suggestions in the comments. That's it. Thanks. Bye.